Have you ever walked into a room in your house and just stood there, unsure where to begin? Not because you forgot why you came in, but because the room itself feels full. Full of things. Full of years. Full of stories and dust and memories. And maybe even a little guilt. And you wonder, how did it get like this? If you're between 60 and 85, this moment might feel familiar. And if it does, you are not alone. We collect things as we go. Trinkets from travels, gifts from children, old clothes that once fit just right, notes scribbled from long-gone friends, china sets that haven't seen daylight since Reagan was president. Every object carries a memory. Every drawer holds a piece of our past. But what no one tells us until it's often too late is this. What we keep can begin to keep us at first. We tell ourselves, I'll get to it. A little here, a little there. But the boxes in the attic multiply. The garage becomes a maze. Closets hold sweaters from 3 decades ago. And suddenly, the idea of decluttering isn't just about tidying, it's about facing chapters of our life we may not feel ready to turn the page on. But here's the truth, retirement isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new chapter. One where freedom, peace, and clarity matter more than ever. And letting go, as hard as it sounds, might just be the most powerful gift you can give to yourself and to the people you love. You see, decluttering after retirement is not just about throwing things away. It's not about minimalism or having a Pinterest-perfect home. It's about asking ourselves, what do I truly need to carry forward? And what am I still carrying, not because I need it, but because I haven't had the heart to say goodbye? Let me tell you about Helen. She's 78, widowed, 2 grown sons who visit a few times a year. She lives in the same house she and her husband moved into in the 1960s. The backyard fence leans a little now. The front porch light flickers when it rains. But inside, it's like a time capsule. Boxes line the hallway, some unopened since her children left for college. The guest room is filled with old sewing patterns, even though arthritis has made it hard for her to thread a needle. And in her kitchen, tucked behind the spice rack, sits a dusty cake mold shaped like a lamb one she hasn't used in 25 years. She told me, every time I think about giving things away, I remember who gave it to me, or what part of my life it reminds me of. And then I stop. Sound familiar? But what Helen didn't realize until her small fall last spring was that her clutter wasn't just inconvenient. It was dangerous. A box in the hallway caught her foot. Just like that, she was on the floor, with no one nearby. One object. One moment. A reminder that clutter can cost more than space. It can cost safety, peace, even dignity. This video isn't about shaming or scaring. It's not about telling you what to throw away. It's about gently inviting you to look around and ask, what in this home still serves me? What helps me breathe deeper, move easier, and live with more joy? And just as importantly, what doesn't? In the next part, we're going to walk together through the 5 most overlooked truths about decluttering after retirement, truths that no one ever talks about until they're facing a move, a loss, or a moment they didn't see coming. But before we do, I want to leave you with this thought. You are not your things. You are not the chair your mother left you, not the suit you wore to your first job, not the boxes of VHS tapes, the broken lamp you swore you'd fix, or the piles of National Geographics stacked behind the laundry room door. You are the memories, the wisdom, the stories, the love. And love, my friend, does not live in boxes. It lives in the way your home feels, in the way your heart softens when you sit in a room filled with light, not clutter, in the way you breathe deeper when the weight of the past no longer crowds your present. If you're ready to begin, even just in your thoughts, you're already halfway there. Let's take that first step together. The first truth is this: decluttering isn't about the stuff. It's about the decisions. When you're younger, Letting go of a jacket or a bookshelf is just that letting go. But after retirement, everything feels heavier. Because it's not just a coat anymore. It's the coat you wore to your granddaughter's kindergarten recital. It's the bookshelf your husband built when you moved into your first home. Suddenly, every decision feels like a tiny loss. A tug at the heart. That's why so many older adults delay. Not because they're lazy, but because every item asks a question. Am I ready to say goodbye to this moment in my life? And the truth is, sometimes we're not. But here's what no. One tells us, you don't have to say goodbye to the memory to let go of the object. There's a quiet power in honoring something, remembering it, and then freeing yourself from the physical weight of it. Taking a photo, writing a small note, creating a digital memory book. Because what matters is not the casserole dish or the birthday card from 1989, but the warmth it brought, the smile it gave, and that stays with you. Let's move to the second truth, and this one hits harder. If you don't make the decisions now, someone else will have to make them for you later. It's not a fun thought, but it's a real one. Many adult children find themselves in the painful position of cleaning out their parents' home after an illness, a fall, or worse. And what should be a time for grieving or cherishing memories becomes a whirlwind of black garbage bags, cardboard boxes, and guessing games. They pick up a porcelain figure and ask, was this special? They find stacks of paperwork and wonder, can I throw this out? They stumble on old letters and break down because they never got to ask you what they meant. I've heard it over and over. I wish we had talked about this sooner. I wish I knew what mattered to her and what didn't. Decluttering isn't just a personal act. It's an act of love. A way to lift the burden off your children's shoulders and say, I took care of it. I made peace with it. You don't have to wonder or worry. And if you're someone who's experienced this role reversal, cleaning out your own parents' home, you know how emotionally heavy it can be. You know the feeling of opening a drawer filled with trinkets and realizing you don't know which ones to keep. The guilt, the sadness, the frustration. You have the chance now to write a different story, to choose what stays and what goes, and to leave a legacy not of confusion, but of clarity and care. The third truth is softer, but just as important. Decluttering can awaken parts of you that have been asleep for years. Sounds strange, doesn't it? But think about it. How many of us hold on to our past so tightly that we forget there's still room for something new? One woman I spoke with, her name is Marion, age 74, finally cleaned out the spare bedroom after her youngest moved away 20 years ago. It was packed floor to ceiling craft supplies she never touched, clothes she hadn't worn since the 80s. A treadmill buried under jackets and boxes. It took her 2 months. She cried. She laughed. She found an old notebook of poems she wrote when she was 19. And when she finally finished, when the last box was gone and the light came through the window again, do you know what she did? She turned that room into a small art studio. Not because she was a painter, but because something inside her said, try. Now, every Tuesday morning, Marion sits by the window with watercolors and paints whatever she sees. Not for money, not for anyone, just for herself. That space she cleared, it gave her back a part of herself she didn't know was missing. Decluttering isn't about what you're losing. It's about what you might gain. Space to breathe, space to move, space to rediscover who you are today, not just who you were. And that leads us to something we rarely talk about, but it deserves to be said plainly. Our homes can quietly become prisons if we're not paying attention. It doesn't happen all at once. First, a drawer you don't open. Then a closet that's too full to hang anything new. Then a room you avoid because it's too packed, too messy, too emotionally overwhelming. And before you know it, you're living in only half your house. Sometimes just one room. A path from bed to kitchen. from chair to bathroom. That's not how it has to be. You deserve more. You deserve to wake up and walk freely through your home. To open a cabinet without bracing for something to fall. To walk into your garage and smile, not sigh. You deserve peace, not piles. And? No, you don't have to do it all in one day. No one is asking you to become a minimalist monk or throw away everything you own. But maybe you could begin with just one drawer, one shelf, one dusty corner. Maybe you open a box and ask yourself, what's really in here? And do I need it to carry forward? Sometimes, that one small step is all it takes to remind yourself you're not stuck. You're still in charge. And you still have choices. Now let's pause here gently, because this next section will open up even deeper truths, ones that speak to legacy, emotional healing, and reclaiming our space as an act of self-worth. Let's continue because there's something deeply human we need to acknowledge here. Decluttering can stir up grief we thought we'd already buried. No. One prepares us for that part. We open a box and find a birthday card with handwriting we haven't seen in years. A scarf that still smells faintly of someone we loved. A worn recipe card with smudges from flour and fingerprints, written in the hand of a mother long gone. And suddenly, what began as an afternoon chore becomes a wave of memory so strong. We have to sit down just to breathe. That's not failure. That's not failure. And if it happens to you, if you find yourself weeping quietly on the floor with a sweater in your lap, know that it means you've lived a life full of meaning. You've loved. You've been loved. And it's okay to feel the ache of remembering. In fact, the pain you feel isn't a reason to stop. It's the reason to keep going gently. To honor what you had. To hold it in your heart, then carefully choose what deserves to remain in your home. One woman, Loretta, 81, told me about finding her husband's old flannel shirts a year after he passed. She hadn't touched his closet since the funeral. But one morning, the sun came in just right, and she felt something shift. I didn't need to keep them all, she said. But I kept two, the one he wore on our anniversary, and the one he wore the day we planted our last rose bush together. She folded the rest, whispered a thank you, and donated them to a local shelter. That, my friends, is grace in action. Decluttering doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing how you want to carry the love forward. It's writing your own story of goodbye, not one rushed by urgency, but one shaped by gentleness. And while we're speaking honestly, here's another truth. We often hang on to things because they represent a version of ourselves we're afraid we've lost. That sewing machine we haven't touched in years? It reminds us of when we made Halloween costumes by hand. That tennis racket? It whispers of strong knees and long summer evenings. Those boxes of teaching supplies in the garage? They speak to the days when we were needed, admired, surrounded. By purpose, letting go of those items can feel like letting go of who we used to be. And that's hard, because who are we without those roles? But here's what we often forget. You are not just who you were. You are who you are becoming. You don't need to prove your past. You lived it. You don't need to hold on to every item. To honor the roles you played. They live in your stories, your smile, your wisdom. Not in the boxes under the stairs. Sometimes. Freeing that space is how you make room for the next version of you to arrive. And it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just the ability to turn a room into a reading nook, to create space for stretching in the morning, to wake up and feel your home breathe again. Now let's talk about something even more vulnerable, something very few people are brave enough to say aloud. Decluttering is sometimes a way to regain control in a world where we're slowly losing it. After retirement, so much shifts, schedules disappear, colleagues fade. The phone doesn't ring as often. Our bodies change. Energy fluctuates. And if illness, loss, or mobility issues enter the picture, Life can feel like it's constantly taking things from us. So we hold on to what we can. We hold on to belongings because they make us feel like something is still ours. Yet paradoxically, it's those very items that can begin to weigh us down. We think we're protecting ourselves by keeping everything. But sometimes, the clutter keeps us from truly feeling free. One man I knew, Robert, age 76, told me something profound. He said, "When I started clearing my basement, I realized I wasn't doing it for my kids. I was doing it for me. I was taking my power back." Every box he sorted, every shelf he cleared, was a reminder that he still made choices. He still had authority over his space, over his story, over how he lived. And when it was done, he didn't feel diminished. He felt stronger, because when your home reflects peace, not piles, when every room holds only what you love or use, when you can move through your space without avoiding things, you reclaim something precious, your dignity. That's what no one tells you. Decluttering isn't just about downsizing or tidying up. It's about returning home to yourself, and maybe now, after this conversation, you're beginning to see that too. Let's talk about legacy, one of those quiet words we often push to the side, until life reminds us how deeply it matters. Most people think legacy is something written in a will or etched on a gravestone. But that's only part of the story. Legacy is also what we leave behind in the spaces we once lived. In the drawers our children open when we're no longer there to explain. In the letters, the photographs, the journals, and even the clutter. Here's a truth no one likes to admit. If we don't shape our legacy intentionally, our mess can become part of it by default. Imagine your daughter walking into your home after you're gone and finding 10 boxes labeled miscellaneous. She doesn't know which ones hold important papers and which ones are old grocery receipts. She doesn't know what to keep. She doesn't know what mattered to you. And in her grief, instead of feeling comforted by your space, she feels overwhelmed by it. But now imagine a different picture. Imagine she opens a drawer and finds a small, handwritten note. "This is my favorite photo of your father and me, keep it." Or she finds a labeled box. "For donation, I've already said goodbye to these, and I'd love for someone else to use them." Or she opens a journal that says, "Here's what I've learned about love, about family, about growing old with grace." That's a legacy. A home filled with peace. Not puzzles. Instructions, not confusion. Stories, not stress. And the beautiful thing is you don't need to be rich, famous, or perfect to leave that behind. You just need to begin now. With intention. With love. With one decision at a time. There's another reason to start sooner, rather than later, and it's one many of us never consider. Decluttering helps us live better while we're still here, not someday. Not for someone else, but for you. One of the biggest emotional shifts I've seen in older adults who declutter is this quiet, surprising joy. They sit in their favorite chair and suddenly notice the light coming through the window in a way they hadn't in years. They feel a breeze again. They hear silence, not the nagging guilt of things undone. And in that space, new life begins to bloom. I met a gentleman named Earl, 83, who said it best. "I didn't realize how much noise all my stuff made until I made it quiet again. Now, when I sit with my cup of coffee, I can actually think. I can hear my own thoughts, and they're not all worries anymore." That's the part no one talks about. When we clear physical space, we also make room for emotional peace. We reduce the clutter in our minds, our hearts. And that shift can be life-changing. But we also need to be honest. This journey takes courage. It's not always easy to face the boxes we've ignored, to let go of things we once thought we passed down, to realize that some of the things we treasured simply don't hold the same meaning for the next generation. And that's okay. What matters most is that you give them meaning. That you Choose what tells your story and what doesn't need to anymore. Because here's one final truth. Decluttering isn't about letting go. It's about letting through, letting light through your windows, letting air through your rooms, letting love through your life without it getting buried under piles of what once was. When you make space, you invite new experiences. A neighbor might visit more often. A grandchild might curl up beside you without stepping over boxes. A friend might feel welcome to share tea without feeling they're intruding on a chaotic space. And more than that, you begin to feel proud again, not just of your home, but of yourself, of the way you've chosen to honor the past without being bound by it. You see, there's a reason this topic touches so many hearts but is rarely spoken aloud. Because deep down, we all know how precious time is, and how the things that truly matter cannot be stored on shelves. They live in conversations, in shared laughter, in forgiveness, in presence, in peace. And peace doesn't come from keeping everything. It comes from keeping only what aligns with who you are today. So here we are, dear friend, together at the quiet end of this conversation. If you've stayed with me this far, it means something in your heart has been stirred. Maybe it's a memory you hadn't visited in a while. Maybe it's a drawer you've been avoiding. Or maybe it's simply the realization that right now is still a good time to begin again. Because decluttering after retirement isn't just about cleaning a house. It's about clearing space for peace. It's about walking through your home and knowing that everything around you has a purpose, and none of it is there out of guilt or fear. You are not too late. You are not behind. And you do not need to do it all at once. But if you've been waiting for a sign, for a moment, for someone to say, it's okay, then let this be that moment. It's okay to keep some things. It's okay to let go of others. It's okay to cry. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to take your time. What matters is that the life you're still living has room to breathe. And when you choose what stays and what leaves, you are saying, I am still here. I still decide. I still have a say in the story I'm telling. You've lived long enough to know that life isn't measured by how much you own, but by how freely you can love, how deeply you can rest, and how gently you can let go when the time is right. So maybe, today, you open one drawer. Maybe you light a candle, put on some music, and talk to yourself kindly as you begin. Maybe you hold an old letter to your chest and whisper, thank you, before placing it in a memory box. Maybe you finally donate that extra set of dishes, knowing someone else could use them. And maybe, just maybe, you sit down in the new space you've made and breathe deeper than you have in years. If this video has spoken to you, share it with someone you love. With a parent, a sibling, a neighbor. Not to tell them what to do, but to gently remind them they're not alone. If you're new here, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. We talk about the real things here, the quiet, often unspoken parts of life that matter more with age. This is a place for reflection, healing, and growth. And if you're already part of this little circle we've created, thank you. Thank you for showing up, for listening, for choosing to live with heart. Leave a comment below if something in this video resonated with you. Tell us your story, or simply say, hello, we're listening. Until next time, may your home be peaceful. May your heart be light. And may you always remember, the best parts of you were never in the things. They were always in the love you gave. And the space you held for others. Take care of yourself. We'll see you soon.